Okay, so I'm a little undecided on this. There are two ways I can go here. Cut through here, come down here, and the question is, do I want to just leave it open, or do I want to actually create a cave entrance? So what I could do is just cut across here, cut here, put a little spacer back in here as the bottom part of the cave entrance, and then have an entrance, but it will get in the way of the models. So I'll probably try that, see how it looks, and if not, I'll just make it open, open into a cave this way. So, alright, I'll come back when I've got that done. Alright, so here it is with the side tunnels built and this area. So this will get cleaned up, all the edges will get cleaned up once it's glued down. I'm going to roughen that up so it looks more like, a rock face anyway. I did decide that I like the idea of a cave over here, so I'm going to put in, when I glue it down, I'll put in a piece right here, just under here, and then I'll cut a cave, a hole in the face. Trench goes under here. There'll be a piece that goes right here with some steps that come down, that way the models will be able to see up over the hill. This ended just so it would look this, good on the side. This is going to be where a bunker will go. Again, everything will get cleaned up a little bit later. And then, another trench wall down on this side here. So now, next step is to start drawing in all the other trenches and holes and that sort of stuff. So here it is. The first layer is glued up. I glued up the first layer so that I can trim up the sides. As you can see, this one's a little bit oversized here to keep it flush down that other side. That's just the way it came out. So what I'll do is, once this one's dry, then I'll put the next layer on there, draw on the trenches, cut them, glue it down, then I'll do the third layer. That way, if I have to trim things up, I can make sure that it's trimmed before I start cutting in the trenches, so that I don't end up trimming and then having trenches that are misaligned. I learned that the hard way with the lava board. So as soon as this is dry, I'll give this 24 hours, then I will be back doing some more. Alright, so here's the first layer all glued and dried. I had to do a little trimming because a couple of them shifted with the weight on them just as it was drying. Some of these seams won't really make a big difference because there's going to be a couple layers above it. So next step is to put layer 2 on there and start drawing out where I need to do the next round of cuts. Okay, I've got all the trenches drawn in, shaved off a little extra. It's not exactly lined up right now, but you can kind of see the idea here. What I'll do is I will cut these out and then I will glue them in place. That should prove to be a rather entertaining experience because it's going to be lots of pieces. Then what I will do, actually I'm sorry, reword that. I will cut all these pieces out and then I will flip over the top level and glue these in place on the top level to mark out what I need to cut on the top side, and then I'll come back and glue them in place. Alright, so next step's going to be a lot of cutting, and I won't leave you on screen for that. Okay, I've finished cutting out the first layer and I've laid it back out, and just for scale I have a Carnifex and the Peace Marines are back. And then just this is the height it will be when you add that second layer. I also had sort of an epiphany as I was cutting this out, and I realized if you wanted to save some foam, you really didn't need, I didn't need to do squares for the third layer. What you could do is just take these pieces and trace them out on the big sheet of foam, and probably save yourself maybe a quarter sheet of foam. The only thing is you'd have to remember to put an extra 3 inches on any of the side pieces, just so you'd have those overhangs. But anyway, next step will be to pull each of these pieces off one at a time, trace them onto their current squares and cut them out. And one additional thought is if you're okay with that sort of height level for the trenches, you could just do this as a 2-layer, or you could actually just do 2 1-inch layers, and then that would bring it up to right about their head height. But what you wouldn't be able to do is the tunnel over here, and that is why I went ahead and made it so tall. But as you can see, there's my lava board stacked up over there. This one is going to probably be about 2.5 times as tall when you stack it up, maybe even 3 times as tall. But still, even so, it could go on a shelf like that pretty easily. Okay, so here it is after I've cut the 3rd layer out, and now I've laid it out and dry fit it. And what I did is I just took the pieces from the 2nd layer, put them down on the panel for the 1st layer, used my X-Acto to, sort of trace the outline, and then I cut them out. The thing to be aware of is that for these that have these little connector pieces here, I flipped them over, and then flipped the other pieces over and did it that way, because you have to remember not to cut out all the way through that piece. And when you're laying it out, remember to come up against the edges over. Lay them out against these edges, not against this edge, or you'll end up messing this up. That's the only real tricky part of all that. Now I've laid it out, you can see with a little scale with some Space Marines. We've got one up under here. Let me hold my light back so you can see. So that shows you about the height of that. There's a Carnifex up against the 3 layers, so a big tank or something in there will have a nice, some artillery will be able to fire. Next step will be to glue all of this stuff down, trim up a few of the little edges, and then we'll come back and start doing things like putting in some stairwells and some of that sort of stuff. Then we'll texture the top, put in a few little craters. I'm not going to put very much on this because I want to still be able to move models pretty easily and put some fortifications. You can put a bastion here, bastion there. You could even get some of the Fortress of Redemption stuff on here, or Wall of Martyrs kind of things. Or so I'm thinking of leaving it pretty much flat and not doing a whole lot of cratering, except probably right in front of the bunker areas to look like they were getting some shelling. So once I get it all glued down, I'll be back. Just a very quick update. I glued the 1st layer on. What I did is I just set it up the board and then made sure the corners and everything lined up. I'll have to do a little trimming, but I'm going to wait until after I get the next layer glued on before I do that. One just thing to think about that I didn't mention earlier is when you're doing your trenches and measuring them out. I did mine so they fit Terminators, so 40mm bases will fit in most of them. This one is the exception. But Dreadnought size 50mm bases won't quite fit in most of the areas except the big open areas like this one. So do think about what size models you want to be able to fit through the trenches. It just didn't make sense to me that you'd have Dreadnoughts tromping around in the trenches, but Terminators did make sense. So anyway, that is where we stand. Next step is to put the next layer on. Okay, well, I'm waiting for this to dry. As you can see, my high-tech weights here. I'm going to start working on the bunker. Now, the first thing I did do was I glued up the pieces that had been cut out of this spot. I glued them back up, so if I don't want to use the bunker, I can just lay that in, and it will be an extension of this one, and I just need to put in a piece right here to block it off to make an end, and I'll do that here later as well. So to make the bunker, all I'm going to do is take some of this 1/2 inch leftover scrap. I just put it there. I measured 1.5 inches above the wall, so I'm going to cut that out. Then I'm going to cut pieces to back here and here, and then a roof, and then that can slide in. Instead of making it permanent, that can just slide in when I want to use that. So I'm going to start cutting the basic shape of it, and I'll do the windows and all that stuff later. But while I'm waiting for this to dry, I figured I'd get a little bit ahead. Alright, so cut out the sides and the front, and those are gluing. I'll let that dry, and then I'll come back and cut out the roof here a little bit later. Okay, the glue is dry. The second layer is done. So now it's time to start doing all the little extra pieces. So cut out this. This will get glued in. We'll next work on putting a little bit of a floor and stairs in each of the wells. This piece will need to get put together so that there's a little step for the Marines to climb up on. And then over here, I've already put together this, and I've started on the bunker. And what I did is I just cut it out here, and I'm gonna make a bunker inside of there. Just one thing, the other piece that I need to do is go through and even stuff up. This was like here, so the bunker wasn't laying flat, so I trimmed that down. I'm going to trim some of the other places that will cause those kinds of issues, and then I need to get the little piece cut for under here. Once I get all these little pieces cut out and glued in and trimmed up, I will come back and we'll look at the next step. So I finished all of the little add-on bits. Remembering I'm not building anything up because I want it to be stackable and I want to be able to place terrain on it. So these were, the thought was that they were elevators where a dreadnought or something could come up and then get onto the battlefield. So all I did was took some 1/2-inch styrofoam, took a pin, drew a circle, cut it out, and I will glue these down as the next step. And then they can come from underneath. Now I understand the dreadnought's not going to fit under there, but you could put any kind of rules in, that's how they come in from reserve or anything like that. And I did that here, and then I did that on that same one over there. For this one, this is basically, I was going to do little plaster stairs with some Hirschart stairs, but decided that this would be easier. So what I did, this will be a stair up, up, up. All I did was cut a square piece here, and I'll glue that down, or I might leave it unglued like I did with the bunker, so I could put other things in here. But then I just cut out this piece here, sanded the edges, and then this piece there, and I'll glue all of that together. And then for the bunker, what I did was, these are the individual, I'm going to pull it all apart, and so this was the piece that I had glued together. I cut it out to fit into this space here, and then I cut out that piece right there so that the tunnel could continue. Then I just cut out some firing ports. Just pretty simple, just measured it in thirds. The next step was I cut out a piece of styrofoam to be a floorboard. So the floor comes in here. This will act as a step up here and here. This fits right there like that, and I'm going to glue all this together in the next step. Then the next piece, I did a 1-inch piece. Slides in just like that. That's part of the stairs up, kind of like on the other side. And then what I did is took a piece of 1/2-inch styrofoam with scrap, because I've just been throwing all the scrap under there. Now I'm using it all up to build a stair right there. So now I have 2 stairs. I rounded that. I'll round this stair edge like I did these after I glue everything up. Then, to continue the stairs up, I took another 1/2-inch piece, and then took a last 1/2 inch piece and cut that to fit. So now you have the stairs up and then a roof. Like I said, I'll glue all this together here in a little bit, and then so you have there. Give me just a second and let me go get some models and I can show you the heights. Okay, so I'm back. So I have a couple of partially painted gonna be salamanders down in there, and you can see from back here that's about how the height they're gonna be, and then you can just bring them. They can be down this way. Bring them up, hop up the stairs, but it's right at a good weapon height. And then this one over here, same sort of thing. It's a fairly decent weapon height, and again, can connect up from the tunnels. So the only other thing that I had done is, like I talked about, I've glued this down. I cut a piece here and I cut one exactly the same on the other side, put a little glue on it. It's not completely dry yet. And I will cut out, once I even this up, do that texturing, and then I will cut out a sort of cave door entrance. So next step is to clean up some of the edges and to do the texturing on these ridges here.
And that's the end of number 2. Next we go on to painting, decorating, texturing, so see you in part 3.